morning, good afternoon, good evening, good day, hello. I'm not sure when you're listening to this, but you are listening to the Portsmouth Proud Podcast. I'm your host, Alexia Washington, the Public Information Officer for P-Town's finest, the Portsmouth, Virginia Police Department. We serve a community that's not too far from the ocean, not too far from the bay, right on the river, and we're producing this podcast for you, for the people of Portsmouth, so that you know what the vision is from the PPD for the city as it pertains to law enforcement, as well as the plan and how you can play a part in it. This is episode 3 of the Portsmouth Proud Podcast, and in honor of Mental Health Awareness Month, we're going to continue our conversation about mental health and policing. But today we're going to look at it from a different angle. We're going to discuss it as it pertains to police officer mental health and well-being. We have a wonderful guest today, Lieutenant Travis Smaglo. He's a 17-year police veteran. He leads our Special Investigations Division, and he also is the leader of our Critical Incident Stress Management Program, which deals with all things well-being, wellness, and mental health as it pertains to our officers. So welcome, Lieutenant Smaglo.
Thank you.
Thank you for taking some time out of your schedule to discuss mental health and well-being. But before we dive in, for those who may not know you, can you give us a little bit of background? So are you a Hampton Roads native, or where are you from?
Sure. So I'm originally from Rochester, New York,
Okay.
which for those that don't know is western part of New York State, so nowhere near New York City.
Okay. Okay.
I always have to tell people that because where we sit today is about as close to Manhattan as where I grew up. So people hear New York and they think Manhattan. It's totally different.
Right.
But I knew I wanted to be a police officer, and I didn't really care where. So I applied to about a dozen different agencies throughout the country.
Okay.
California, Vermont.
Oh, you really didn't care?
No, I didn't. I figured wherever I land, I'll see if it's the job for me. And I had never heard of Portsmouth before. I had never been here before. But I applied here because of someone that I worked with's husband was from this area, and he said, take a look at Portsmouth. So I did, and came down, took the test, and they called me and offered me the job first. So that's how I ended up here. So the second time I was ever in Portsmouth was literally to start the pre-academy. And here I sit 17 and a half years later. So it's really been a great department and a fantastic career.
So you knew you wanted to be a police officer. Why? What drew you to a career in law enforcement?
A couple things. I knew that the day-to-day kind of office job wasn't right for me. And I think a lot of people say that, but I really wanted a job that I felt like I could give back. And I thought that, what better career to give back than being part of a police department. So that, and I really do love the law. I find it fascinating. I have a degree in criminal justice, and I'd switched from engineering to criminal justice, and I just took a class by happenstance and decided to change my entire career path halfway through college because I love the law so much.
Wasn't prepared for that answer. Okay. So switching, sure. That's a big jump from engineering to criminal justice. Like, what class was it, if you don't mind? Like, what was the
It was
topic?
A prerequisite, or not a prerequisite, one of those classes you have to take, like, to fill a requirement.
Okay.
And I believe it was just intro to criminal justice. And I was like, wow, this is great. And so I started taking more courses and then switched my major and said, that's definitely the career path I want to go down.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So you took a class, made that switch, and then you moved down to Portsmouth on the second time of visiting.
Yep.
So you've been here for your entire police career?
Yep.
Okay, and so you start off, so I'm kind of new to this field, so you start off as a recruit, come back from the academy. What are you after you come back from the academy?
You're still a recruit. You will be sworn in. So we have our recruits that are pre-academy. So we hire them on to get them in the door once they've passed the background. But our academies only start, at the time it was 3 times a year. They would do it at basically a rolling calendar. Now it's twice a year. The academy will start on a predetermined date. And so once you go to the academy, you're over in the Hampton Roads Criminal Justice Training Academy for, I believe it's about 4 or 5 months.
Okay.
And it's a standardized academy with other jurisdictions. And then we come back to Portsmouth, and you're still a recruit, although you are sworn in. So you're officially by DCJS, you are considered a sworn officer, but you're not ready to go out on the street yet. So you'll go through a post-academy here. And that's really where you fine-tune your abilities and learn how to do it the Portsmouth way, because every jurisdiction, there's differences in paperwork and just different ways that things are done. So they'll come back for the post academy and then go into it's about a 16-week field training program, and they'll cycle through 4 or 5 or 6 different field training officers out on the street, and then eventually the great day of finally being cut loose, as we call it. And the chief signs off and says, you're ready to roll solo.
So you were cut loose, and so you're a sworn police officer. Then did you become a detective, or what was your career? No,
I was in patrol for about 2 years, and then I applied to be part of, at the time it was called NIO, Neighborhood Impact Officer. It's switched names. Now it's our Community Enhancement Team, or Community Enhancement Officers. But similar type of responsibilities. The difference between the programs when I was in it versus now is we had more NIOs. We had about 13 to 15. And I was assigned to the Lincoln Park neighborhood, the PRHA neighborhood, and there was also Sergeant Adams was assigned to Dale Holmes, so we shared the responsibilities, and we rode together. And Detective Siniskelke was assigned to Swanson. So the three of us would work together in the PRHA areas, and it was more of a there was a community aspect of it that was a big part of it, and then a lot of enforcement too. And
so how long were you an NIO?
So I was an NIO for about 2.5 years, and then at a certain point, I took the sergeant's test, and this has changed too, but at the time, you took the test, written exam, and if you didn't pass it, if you didn't get a 70 or above, you're out of the process. Well, I took the test, and there were 13 of us that had passed it. I was not ready to be a sergeant, or at least I didn't think I was, but I figured, you know what, I did well on the test, might as well study and prepare. So I did, and I went through the sergeant's process, and I came out, actually, I was beaten by one person, Stephen Jenkins. He beat me by like 50 points or something on the overall process. So, you know, I guess you could say if you're going to be beat by someone, you know, the police chief is...
Your chief, that's,
so he beat me out, but I ended up finishing second, and that group of sergeants were promoted. There were 6 of us that were promoted on the same day. The effective date was, I'll never forget this, Christmas Eve of 2011. So newly minted Sergeant Smaglo and newly minted Sergeant Jenkins' first shift was Christmas Eve on midnight, 2011.
That's awesome. That's cool. So you went from NIO to being a young sergeant, and then so right now you lead our Special Investigations Division. Was it from being a sergeant, how long did it take to get to where you are now to being a lieutenant?
Sure. So I was a sergeant on midnights for about 6 months, and then Captain Bennett and myself, he at the time was also one of those 6 sergeants that was promoted. We were transferred into the Special Investigations Unit, so vice narcotics. And we had, you know, obviously 2 sergeants and about 10 to 12 detectives. I did that for about a year, and then I was transferred to the Detective Bureau. And from there, they did that for a few months and was put into forensics. At the time, our forensics division, our forensics unit was run by a civilian supervisor. And they decided that they wanted to have a sworn supervisor over there. So I was transferred into forensics for probably about 6 months I did that, and then was fortunate enough to take the lieutenant's exam. Just by luck of the draw, you have to be in a role for 2 years before you're eligible, and I was eligible by like 2 years and 1 day to take the test. I took the test, and again, I finished, actually at that time I finished first, and I think Captain Springer finished second, so we both got promoted off of that list. And that was 2013, I believe, 2014, no, yeah. I think it was May of 2014. I was promoted to lieutenant.
So you just like 2 years, boom, next thing.
So now I've been a lieutenant for, actually it's probably my 10-year anniversary someday. It was May of 2014, so I've been a lieutenant for about 10 years now.
Speaking about, or just discussing like how you've moved along your career path, you've been able to be a part of a lot of different cases, see a lot of different sides of things, but I would also think like in seeing those different sides or being a part of a lot of cases, you've also been able, or you've witnessed things that most of us don't. And a lot of those things might be tragedies or some kind of the results of a heinous crime or act. So how did that impact you? The things that we might not be comfortable talking about.
Sure.
How has that impacted you along your career?
Well, I'll tell you, I think there's a lot of similarities between officers and how they deal with what they see on a day-to-day basis, and some differences too. One term that you hear a lot is compartmentalization.
Okay.
And what that means is you're on the job and you see some kind of heinous crime or bodies or whatever it might be that impacts you. But you kind of try and leave that at work and put it like in this box over here and not bring that home with you.
Right.
And that can be difficult to do. There are a lot of different outlets, and we'll talk more about that. But one of the biggest things that everyone always says, they've said this my entire career, and it holds true, is that you've got to have hobbies outside of police work. You've got to have an outlet, whatever that is. And folks come into this career, they have hobbies, and a lot of times, unfortunately, those hobbies kind of turn into the used to. I used to do biking. I used to do yoga. I used to go fishing. I used to be involved with sports teams. And that needs to not happen. You need to continue your hobbies and find new ones and do something that has nothing to do with the world of police.
It's important that
sure
we have hobbies. Everyone needs a hobby.
Everyone needs a hobby.
Everyone needs a hobby. But this is a good place to take our first community break. And when we return from our break, we're going to talk a little bit more about how Lieutenant Smaglo was prepared as a young officer to deal with some of these more stressful events, or the emotional toll or mental toll that happens as being a police officer. So we'll be back in just a little bit.
Are you considering a career in law enforcement? Sign on today as a Portsmouth police officer and receive up to $1,500 if you're already Virginia certified. We offer a $1,000 allowance for a bachelor's degree and a $500 allowance for an associate's degree on top of your base pay. Officers can also earn additional income on time spent in court and at community events. Visit our website at portsmouthpd.us for more information on how to apply.
So we're back with Lieutenant Smaglo, and we are discussing mental health and well-being for police officers. And so we just were talking about the importance of having a hobby, but not just having a hobby, continuing to participate in your hobbies, continue to be active with your hobbies. But when you first became a police officer, were you prepared for some of the things that you were going to see, or some of the stressful events? Was there like a special training? Did they talk about it, or did you just feel like, for lack of a better phrase, thrown to the wolves when you became a police officer?
No, I don't think you can really prepare anybody fully for what it's going to be like, because again, it's going to impact everyone differently,
okay.
Right? Like some folks, for me, everyone's got different triggers. For me, animals happen to be my trigger, like dogs.
Okay.
If you see a dog get hurt, I don't know why, but that really bums me out. It hits me a special kind of way. And in the Post Academy, and they've done this for as long as I've been here in the police department, there's a number of courses that we go through that kind of prepare you, or try to prepare you as best as the department can, to how to deal with when you're involved in a critical incident, or you're at the scene of a heinous crime, an officer involved shooting, a traumatic event. So I think that the department has always, at least in my experience, done what they can to prepare the officers before they hit the street.
Okay.
But nothing's going to fully prepare everyone for everything.
Right,
Yeah.
That's true. So I know you just said that they have numerous courses that you would take post-academy, and that's when you come back and you're still a recruit and you're going through that initial training?
Correct.
Is that what you're saying?
It's when you come back from the academy and now you're going through the Portsmouth post-academy to kind of learn how Portsmouth does it. And I think that's really important too, because the folks that are teaching the courses in the post-academy are 100% Portsmouth police officers, sergeants, lieutenants, captains. So, you not only get to know the Portsmouth way, you get to know the Portsmouth family and who all is involved, and who you're going to be working with and working for, and who you're going to see out on the street. So I think that's very important.
So in addition to being able to talk to your trainers or your other officers who've maybe been on a part of the police force for longer than the initial or the recruit has, are there any other resources or formal support systems to help with mental health for police officers?
Sure. So there's a few different things that we have going on. I think the biggest two that I'll touch on is a critical incident stress debrief. We commonly call it a CISM. It's been called a CISM forever, but CISM actually stands for Critical Incident Stress Management. But the actual term is a debrief. But what that looks like, well, first of all, let me say that's something that did not exist 17 years ago when I came on.
Okay.
The first time I'd really heard of it was probably about 8 or 9 years ago. But what that looks like is when we have a critical incident that impacts a number of different officers. You know, we talk about our officer-involved shooting incidents, things like that. We will set up a debrief, and it's evolved over the years, but the way that it looks now is everyone who was involved in that incident on the PD side will come together, and we'll have some peer support officers, and those officers are trained in peer support. They've gone through some pretty rigorous training on how to run that debrief, and we also have partnered with a licensed clinician. She has also been through the police training, so she's a licensed clinician for therapy and things like that, but she's been through the training that all the officers go through too, to kind of understand a little bit better what public safety is dealing with. And her clinicians have been through the training as well. So we'll get either her or one of her clinicians or two of her clinicians to sit in, and essentially it's everyone just kind of, if they don't have to participate, but they discuss maybe how they're feeling about what they went through. We try to schedule them like 24 to 72 hours out, let it be a couple days, and then we'll set them up usually here at 206. We've used different buildings, but like I said, you don't have to talk, but people end up talking, and I think it's really helpful because you might be experiencing something that you feel like you're the only one, right? But then you find out that this super cool SWAT guy who's been doing it for 20 years is also experiencing something similar. And it maybe makes it more normalized and allows you to just kind of vent and get it out there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you said there were two programs, and so CISM was one,
Sure. So the Critical Incident Stress Management program includes the debrief as part of it. Another part of that would be the peer support team.
Okay.
So we have a peer support team. It's overseen by myself and Lieutenant Blystone, and we have a number of officers that are part of it. Also, Lieutenant Hawley just joined the team in the past 6 months, along with a few other officers and detectives. And what that is it can be used essentially, the folks on the team are available for anybody on the department to talk to about what might be going on.
Okay.
So it's someone that you might feel more comfortable speaking to than, let's say, your supervisor.
Right.
And caveat, yes, I'm a lieutenant. Lieutenant Blystone is a lieutenant.
Right.
So when we have these critical incident stress management debriefs, myself or Lieutenant Blystone will arrange them logistically.
Okay.
We don't sit in them.
Okay.
Because some folks don't feel comfortable with a lieutenant, a supervisor sitting in there.
Right.
That being said, I oversee the peer support team. I am a peer support member. Some officers don't feel comfortable speaking to a lieutenant about something that's affecting them at work.
Okay.
I get it. I totally get it. I'll get them in touch with someone that's of a similar rank, or maybe has a similar life experience. You know, sometimes it's a female officer might want to feel more comfortable speaking to a female peer support team member. So we try to arrange it so that it's someone that you feel comfortable talking to. But, you know, also I should say there's been plenty of times people have called me and said, hey, LT, can I talk to you about something, you know, peer support related? Absolutely, 100% call me. I'm available, but I do understand some folks just don't feel comfortable. If you trust me, you know, I get it. Some folks have known me for a long enough time that they go, yeah, I know you're lieutenant, but I'm still, you know, I feel comfortable sharing with you. And the great thing about that is well, one of the great things about that program is that it's protected under Virginia State Code. So we really try and beat this drum in lineups and to the department so everyone's aware that if you contact me or any member of the peer support team and want to discuss something related to peer support, you say, hey, I'm calling you because you're a member of the peer support team. Anything that is disclosed, I cannot, under penalty of, there's actually a law that says I cannot reveal that to anybody else unless you're suicidal, you have a plan to commit suicide, or homicidal, you have a plan to kill somebody. Obviously, you would have to take action there, or you admit to some kind of, heinous crime, something like that. But other than that, I can't share that with anybody. Even the judges, even the, the chief, or any, not that the chief would ask, but it's 100% protected.
That's important, because that was actually a question that I was going to ask on how do you encourage trust within the group, and then just confidence that what is said is going to be confidential. But now we know that there's a law that is protecting those types of conversations. That's important for everyone to know, because it's kind of hard. It's hard to talk about your feelings in general, but especially I would think in a police culture it would be difficult to discuss those things, and even more so to discuss those things with your supervisor.
Absolutely.
Because you might feel like if you divulge too much information, someone might think it's compromising your job. So Lieutenant Smaglo, what led you to lead the Critical Incident Stress Management Program for the department?
Chief Jenkins told me to do it. I know that maybe not the answer that you expected, but I'll say this. A couple years ago, he said, this is something that we want to do as an agency, and I want you to lead the program up. And so I didn't know a whole lot about it, to be perfectly honest with you. I wasn't really too aware of what was out there. And so I started looking into it, and just like happens with a lot of things in life, once you start learning about it, you realize, oh wow, this is really interesting, really important, and I kind of fell in love with the whole idea of what an officer wellness program and a critical incident stress management program could do for the agency and do for the officers, up and down, all throughout. And it's not just helping individual officers, it's the whole department and the city, because an officer who is dealing with the stress in a positive way, or in a way that they're not angry all the time, that's only going to be beneficial to them and the citizens and the department as a whole.
Right. So how does one become a part of this peer support team? So you can utilize the service, but how do you become one of those people that someone can talk to?
Sure. So you have to go through the training. Okay. And pretty much if you want to be part of the team and you go to the training, you're good to go. Oh. And that's really because, and I try to beat this drum, and I've been trying to get some more involvement, some more peers, because right now our team is mostly made up of veteran officers. Mm-hmm. And that's great because a lot of experience. But a 2-year officer has a completely different life experience with not just life in general, but the job, field training, everything that they're going through. I want to get a diversity of experience, and you don't have to be a veteran officer that's been doing it for 20 years to be beneficial to your work partners. So a 2, 3, 4, 5-year officer that's right there in it with you, I would like to see some more junior officers join the team. We have had training hosted here in this building at 206 twice. Once in, I think it was like the fall or the winter of 22, and then we just had it here again in January of 24. So I think we'll continue to bring it here every year. It's very well attended. I mean, the class is full with folks. Training. The training, yeah. It's a full class. Both times it was with folks from all over Virginia.
Okay, so the training is actually open to officers across the state.
Yes, and you don't even have to be a police officer.
Oh, okay.
Our clinicians, our licensed clinicians that we partner with, have been to the training that was held here in Portsmouth.
What about if you're not a clinician? Are you allowed to?
Absolutely, yeah. Anybody can go, really.
To take the training, okay.
Anybody that wants to go to the training can absolutely take it. It's really good training, and it's not intense. I think some people shy away like, oh, it's going to be really intense. It's really not too intense.
What are some of the things that the training covers?
You know, what to do, how to assist your peers if they come to you with certain problems. We have to know our limitations.
Right.
So that's what's great about partnering with a licensed clinician is sometimes someone just wants to talk, and just talking for a couple hours helps tremendously. Other times it might be something that they'd be better off being referred to someone that is a licensed professional.
Okay.
And so we can kind of grease those wheels. How to manage those critical incident stress debriefs. Fortunately, we haven't had an incident here that required a massive type of debrief where there's hundreds of different folks, like a mass casualty incident that you might see after a school shooting or something like that, where you've got multiple jurisdictions. But if that were to happen, we know that we have the trained personnel to manage all that after the fact, the days and the weeks and the months after an incident like that.
So are the debriefs open solely to officers, or are debriefs open to anyone?
Typically just officers.
Okay.
If there was a member of like EMS that maybe was impacted, we would open it up to them as well.
Okay.
But it's typically just the officers involved. Again, supervisors can go, like a sergeant maybe was involved with an incident. Absolutely, you know, they could go to it. But we try to limit it to the folks that are impacted by those kinds of things, directly impacted by it.
Okay.
Because a lot of times people just don't feel comfortable sharing with just anybody. You know,
Right.
It's got to be folks that they know at least have gone through a similar experience. And, you know, I have been asked before by some very well-intentioned folks, hey, can I go? And unfortunately, I'll have to say, well, no, because you're not really directly involved. I know you want to show your support, but you're not directly involved with this. That being said, you know, if there's an officer that may not have been involved with one specific incident, but they want to go just to show their support, we'll absolutely open that up to them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's really nothing like hard and fast rules when it comes to some of these things, and I think that's probably for the best, because you don't want to turn down someone that maybe needs to get some help, but at the same time you want to make sure that it doesn't become everyone in the department is there and then no one wants to say anything because they feel uncomfortable.
Right. That's important. I want to, just so that I can understand, but for others to be able to understand. So if I'm an officer and I respond to a call and we get there, something heinous has happened.
Sure.
After that, you said it's about 24 to 72 hours later, there automatically would be a debrief.
Yes. It would depend on the number of officers involved as well.
Okay.
Because sometimes we have incidents where you mentioned, like if you went to a call, and let's use baby death, because that's a very tragic type of thing that I think impacts a lot of people. When I say impacts a lot of people, it's going to impact the officers.
People, yes.
Are going to feel some kind of way about it, and it's not going to be great. But it takes a little bit of time for that to settle in. How are you sleeping? How are you eating? What's your routines like? Sometimes it takes 48 hours before you even kind of can start to even think about processing what you saw.
Right.
If it was one or two officers, we probably wouldn't hold a debrief with a huge group. What we'll do instead, and this is how we like to see the program work, someone will call me, or someone will just, when I say someone, anybody on the department can do it. They can say, hey, Officer Smaglo went to this baby death call. I don't know how he's dealing with it, but someone should reach out to him. I'll call one of my peer support members and say, hey, reach out to Smaglo, see how he's doing. Okay. And so we'll do a kind of one-on-one like that. Or our peer support team, because we do have a diversity within the department. They're in different units, specialized, detectives, patrol, etc. They'll take it upon themselves to reach out.
Okay.
So it's kind of informal in that regard, and that's great. That's great. Just someone reaching out saying, hey, I know you went through that. Are you doing okay with it? How you feel about it? And just kind of show support for them.
And it's nice that it's able to, the program is flexible.
Yes.
That you can tailor it to the needs of your department. That's important. This is a good time for us to take another break, and when we return from the break, we'll discuss with Lieutenant Smaglo about some of the strategies officers can take, and maybe even you can take if you are experiencing if you experience a critical incident or some type of stressful event, how you can help with mental health and your well-being.
Are you considering a career in law enforcement? Sign on today as a Portsmouth Police Officer and receive up to $1,500 if you're already Virginia certified. We offer a $1,000 allowance for a bachelor's degree and a $500 allowance for an associate's degree on top of your base pay. Officers can also earn additional income on time spent in court and at community events. Visit our website at portsmouthpd.us for more information on how to apply.
So we're back from the break. We were discussing with Lieutenant Smaglo, and we were talking about the peer support groups and the critical incident stress debriefs, how you can get training or how you can be a part of that group. But now we want to talk about the strategies that maybe Lieutenant Smaglo or his peer support workers use to engage officers who might be reluctant to seek help. I know you said that sometimes maybe one of their colleagues will call and say, hey, this person really needs to talk to somebody, and you'll have a peer support officer call them. But what are some other ways that you may engage those who are reluctant to seek help?
Sure. So, it's a holistic approach. Some people just aren't going to want to talk,
right?
And that's okay. We're not going to force anything on anybody. But the best thing really is to look at it from a bunch of different angles, because it's not just about peer support, it's about the holistic officer wellness. So one of the things that we have that I think is pretty progressive for police departments is like the officer wellness room, which we got that back in. You're looking at me like you don't even know. See, a lot of people don't even know. Yeah. Again, it's something that I'm sure didn't exist in any departments, 5 or 10 years ago. But it's kind of growing in different agencies, and we have one at headquarters. And what it is just a small, office-sized room with some like dim lighting and some comfortable chairs. There's actually one of those massage chairs that you see at the at the mall or the airport. So you can go in there, you can get a full massage in this massage chair. There's a speaker in there. There's actually like a coffee table that doubles as an air purifier. The idea is that if you're having a rough time or you just need 10 or 15 or 20 minutes to decompress, what a perfect spot to just sit down for a little bit and maybe listen to music or maybe get a massage. I'll tell you, that massage chair, I've tried it out. It's fantastic. So if you haven't had an opportunity to check that out, by all means, please do.
Oh, so it is open to non-officers, non-sworn officers. Okay.
It's open. It's right down at headquarters. Ask anybody down there. They'll show you where it is. It's right by between property and evidence and the traffic unit. So the only downside of the massage chair is, of course, we wear the gun belt and the vest. So you got to take that off, otherwise it's not really going to work.
Right.
But it is probably, you can close the door, take your vest off and your gun belt off, and it's safe. You're not out in the public somewhere. It's in a secure facility. So, that's something that we have that I don't think a lot of departments really do. One of the other great benefits that I'm a huge proponent of is physical fitness, and a safe place to do that. I'm sure everyone now is aware, but the gym that we have far supersedes the gym that we used to have. People like to lift weights. Some people like to use the ellipticals. Some people like to use a treadmill. Some people just want to do calisthenics. We've got mats down there.
You've got an assault bike down there. So
what kind of bike is it?
The assault bike, like the CrossFit bike.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, I've never used that one. See, that's not something. And there's I think 2 or 3 huge screen TVs. Yeah. So our policy says you can work out as long as you're division commander. So if your lieutenant says yeah, go for it. And I don't think there's really any lieutenants here that would say no. Right. Everyone would probably say yes. So that to me is fantastic, not just because physical fitness is really important for the job. Everyone would agree with that. But the physical exercise, the endorphins and the dopamine that are released, and the serotonin that's released when you workout,
right.
whatever it looks like, whether that's walking on the seawall or jogging or lifting heavy weights. It's countless studies, I'm not a doctor, but
no,
countless studies have shown that for everyone it's just beneficial.
Right.
Longevity, mental and emotional wellness is coupled with that physical.
And I would think like a physical fitness would be one of the strategies or one of the things that we would encourage our officers and non-sworn officers to do to combat the stresses of the job or everyday stresses. It's not just job stress. So that's really helpful for well-being in general. And it's great that it's encouraged. And I know I did not know about this wellness room.
Yeah, you got to check it out.
I have to check it out.
Yeah.
So what are some other strategies besides working out? What are some things, you had said hobbies earlier.
Mm-hmm.
What are some other things that officers can do to help well-being?
So nutrition, we talk a lot about nutrition. That's important, especially with our shifts being as long as they are. A lot of officers are working, they're working right up to that 16-hour wall. So you're at work for a long time. So it takes effort to think about, what am I going to eat on this shift? Am I going to go to McDonald's for every meal, or am I going to prepare something ahead of time? Or am I going to go to Wawa? That's, I think, really super important, just to kind of keep yourself from, gaining that weight. And it's not even just about gaining the weight; it's just how you feel too.
Right.
And another real big factor that we don't talk about as much is the financial wellness aspect of overall well-being. So I think that as officers, we don't really pay a whole lot of attention to that. There is some really fantastic training out there. I attended a class in Virginia Beach. It was either last month or earlier this month, and I thought I was going to go in there and learn how to teach financial wellness to our officers, because I know a little bit about it. But my goodness, I learned so much. I couldn't teach this course because it was so good. There was so much information, things I never heard about, things I never thought about, that I really would like to, again, pound that drum of financial wellness. We have a retirement plan. I'm sure that a lot of officers like me came into this career not knowing the first thing about it. Didn't know how many years they have to work before they can be fully vested. Didn't know how many years, what age they have to be. I had no idea. It was probably 5 years on until someone, and it was a senior officer, explained it to me. I was like, oh my goodness, I had no clue,
Right.
So that's real important. And we also have a deferred compensation plan here through the city, and it's super easy to do. Again, it's just getting that information out there. How do you sign up for it?
What is deferred compensation?
So deferred compensation is, people hear about 401ks. I'm sure that term is something that at least folks are generally aware of. In public service, we have something called a 457. Same exact idea. What it is you put money into this account, and it comes out of your check before it's taxed. Okay. So it's deferred compensation because it's your compensation, your money.
Yes.
But because they're taking it out pre-tax, you will end up paying taxes on it eventually when you draw on that account. But the nice part is that for that 25 years or however long that you're putting money in there, it's growing tax-free. So you're not being you're not paying taxes on it up front, and you're not paying any taxes on it for the 10, 20, 30 years that it's growing in this account. And it's something small. You can start out with, $20, $25. I promise you're not going to miss it. Again, because it's coming out pre-tax, what some folks don't realize is that if I were to put $100 in there, my paycheck isn't going to go down $100, because that paycheck is after taxes. But that $100 went over to that account before it was taxed. Okay. So your paycheck might go down $75, your actual take home.
Right.
So, that's another real great benefit. And something that was told to me that I've tried to stick to is that, as difficult as it might be to do, when we get a raise, I think this year we're slated for a 3.5% raise or a 3% raise, something like that. Why not? You're already used to living on what you're living on. Why not take half of that raise and just put it to deferred comp? You still get a little raise, and you're putting more money into your retirement account, and it's just an extra bonus at the end of your career, because your pension probably isn't going to supplement it's not going to be enough for all of your bills.
Right. So this deferred compensation is in conjunction with the city's pension plan for officers.
It's separate. It's separate than the pension plan. The pension is run through the state, through VRS, and they have an office up in Richmond. And ask anybody that's close to retirement, about that. I'm not close enough to retirement, so I haven't gone up there and talked to them. But I know that when folks start to get to that, that 1 year, 2 year mark. They start to really look into it, and they can go up to Richmond if they want. They can call up there and figure out exactly how much money they're going to get. You can go online and check, and there's calculators, estimates. It's not exact, but you can put in what you believe your final compensation will be, your last 3 years of employment. But the deferred comp is run through a company. It keeps changing names. I think it's called Mission Square now. Used to be ICMA. But all of the paperwork that you need is available through Human Resources, and you can also do it all online. You can do it right from your desktop and sign up and start investing. So
I see, just from how we're having this conversation, how the financial wellness is of interest to you. Is this something that maybe younger officers or just officers in general might struggle with? Is financial wellness an issue within the police force in general? We don't have to be specific to Portsmouth, but just in general.
I don't know. I guess maybe because it's one of those things we don't talk about too much.
Okay.
There's part-time that's available, and boy, some cops just love working part-time, and I'm as guilty of it as anybody. But one of the things that was also told to me and has been repeated, and I've heard it repeated many, many times, is don't let part-time pay your bills. Part-time should be that extra money, that vacation fund, that new car fund, that new toy fund, whatever it might be. Because if you start to let it pay your bills, then you're just kind of working to live, and that's really no way to live. Right. So, but that's something that's a little bit beyond. Again, I guess when I went to that financial wellness course in Virginia Beach, I really learned, wow, there's so much that I don't know. And I'm not a professional in that regard. All I can do is kind of push people in the right direction and say, hey, look into deferred comp. They do have meetings. We get emails. I'm sure most of us delete them, but we get emails from the city pretty regularly. Hey, we got a rep from Mission Square coming if you want to sit down and talk to them. I highly recommend doing that. If you don't know where to begin, schedule a meeting, and it doesn't take much time, and you sit down with a rep from the company and they'll explain how it works.
Okay, I'm glad that you talked about that piece, because it kind of humanizes officers. I feel, even for myself, when I was thinking about officer mental health or well-being, I'm kind of really focus or zero in on the things that you might witness or see when you're on the job. But that is compounded by the everyday just human experiences of you have bills, you have to work, you have family, and all those things are compounded, or they're added to the additional stresses of the unique work that police officers do. What is something that you would hope that will change for the better regarding policing and mental health, or the programs or how departments approach it?
Well, I think the stigma, we talked about that earlier, as the years go on, the stigma goes away more and more and more. And, despite what some people say, there's always these generational differences. The generation before us thinks that our generation is lazy or incompetent, and then our generation thinks that the next generation is lazy, incompetent, and all that. You hear that all the time throughout history. You just hear that all the time, and I don't buy into any of that. I know plenty of lazy boomers, and I know plenty of lazy millennials, and so on and so forth. But the good thing about the younger generation that's coming into the workforce in general and into policing is that they don't really see the stigma. They don't believe in the stigma. It doesn't exist nearly as much as it did for maybe my generation of policing, and definitely not the generation that came before me. Right. So as that starts to go away more and more, I think that these kinds of programs are just going to be not just accepted, but ingrained in a sense of the overall experience of the career and of the job, which I think is a great thing, and I think we'll see more of that as time goes on. We're coming to the end of this particular session, and so we're going to take one last community break, and then we'll come back with Lieutenant Travis Smaglo, and he will have some final words for us.
Are you considering a career in law enforcement? Sign on today as a Portsmouth police officer and receive up to $1,500 if you're already Virginia certified. We offer a $1,000 allowance for a bachelor's degree and a $500 allowance for an associate's degree on top of your base pay. Officers can also earn additional income on time spent in court and at community events. Visit our website at portsmouthpd.us for more information on how to apply.
We're back from the break. We've been having a wonderful discussion with Lieutenant Travis Smaglo. He is the lead of our Special Investigations Division here at the PPD. And we've been discussing officer mental health and well-being. We just finished discussing about the financial wellness and how officers can take advantage of some of the programs that this city offers. He talked about deferred compensation and just really exercise, nutrition, making sure that you are participating or have an active hobby to really keep yourself well. Lieutenant Smaglo, are there any final words, or do you have any final words for the people?
Sure. So there's a lot that we did talk about, and I want to say that if nothing else, I'll leave you with this. These kinds of things affect all of us. That the kinds of things that you see on the street day in and day out, they start to weigh on you over time, and it may not be a one event type situation. It might be the cumulative over the years. And fortunately, we have gotten away as a profession from the stigma of addressing that. A real good analogy that I heard was, it's kind of like you're carrying this book bag on your back and you're just filling it with more and more stuff, and it's getting heavier and heavier and heavier and heavier, and you're carrying it, and you're still carrying it because we're cops, we're tough, we're gonna keep on trudging until that thing gets so heavy that you can't even, you're struggling. And it's not about getting rid of that book bag completely. What it's about is, maybe getting like a cart to put that stuff in, and you're still going to be carrying that with you, but it's not as heavy. So it's not a magic, fix-all type thing, but everyone needs to find how to put that stuff into a cart and get some assistance with carrying it, whatever that looks like, whether it's, talking to someone on the peer support team, private counselor, EAP, or a combination of those things that we talked about with the physical fitness and the nutrition, and also talking to someone too. So, I want to promote the peer support and all the things that we can do to assist our officers carry that load.
Okay. Well, thank you, sir. And just to follow up we had a conversation with Dr. Woodard from Behavioral Health Care Services last week, and what would also be open to police officers is what's open to everyone is the 988 system, which is a national hotline. And so whether you feel like you're in crisis or you're just having a bad day, you can always call 988, and they'd be able to help you. I just want to say thank you so much, Lieutenant Smaglo, for coming in and speaking with us today. And I want to say thank you for listening. Remember, this is your city, this is our city, so let's work together to make it better. Thank you.
Thank you.